Do some hindquarter control drills. We're also going to do, like I said, some backing drills, and backing drills to sort of teach the horse to sort of respect our space a little bit as well. And we're going to see about doing some forequarter control drills, which is good for a horse that you might have that wants to be a bit bolshy, sort of push over top of you. If you can get control of their forequarters and have them understand you can back their feet back out of your space, it also helps get a horse that might be one of those ones that wants to get up in your space a bit too much and sort of push into you, understand that you can stop them from doing that. So first of all, I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure on his hindquarters here. I'm going to increase that pressure by tapping him until he just gives us that one sort of step behind. So I'm just looking for one step. That's a bit of a starting point. Just get him just to disengage those hindquarters for us, and then we'll sort of just build on that. When he moves, I'm just going to rub the spot where I tapped him with the stick, just sort of rubbing that stimulus away. Just going to see if we can get a nice step here. If he wants to sort of start moving his forequarters into me, I'll just have my hand up near his face to sort of deter him from looking to bump into me. Might just need to give that head collar a bit of a tug as well, just to encourage him to yield those hindquarters around instead of moving forward. So I'm just going to be working on this. I'm not looking for him to do too many steps at the start, just looking for one, just sort of start a little bit of a basis of understanding here. I want him to pivot on that inside foreleg if I can. That's a nice sort of step there if you can get the horse to pivot around his forequarters. He's probably not going to do it perfectly today, obviously. In the end, you can get your horse to do maybe a 360 turn whilst pivoting on that inside foreleg. That's also very nice, but like I said, we're just sort of starting today. So I just want to build a little bit of an understanding of what I'm asking when I do this drill and put this sort of pressure on him. You see he's starting to learn to move his hindquarters without me having to touch him with that stick. Now he's starting to understand that when I leave my body language down and show my intent on wanting him to move his hip away, he understands to move his hip. Which is good, that's what we want. We want the horse to understand what we're after with a minimal amount of pressure, and build on that. So, other side. I'm going to do the same on this side. Hand up near his face, show my intent on that hip. Doesn't want to move that hip, I'm just going to give him a bit of a tap. I'm going to increase that pressure until he just gives us, at least tries to move away from that pressure. It doesn't have to be a perfect step or have him step his inside hind leg in front of his outside hind leg perfectly. I just want him just to, at the start, at least understand just to move away from me putting that pressure on him, and have him understand that, from me showing my intent on him moving, the next step of pressure is me tapping him on the bum, and understand the sequence of how I'm going to be asking him and what's expected, so he can understand that when I'm showing my intent, wanting to move with that first little bit of pressure, for him to piece together and learn that if he moves from me just using my body language without actually touching with the stick or tapping with the stick, that's a signal to move. So, like I said, once he's starting to learn to do this better and piecing it all together, I'm then going to ask him to start to do a couple more steps. Sometimes he might just need to increase that pressure on his bum just to have him understand to move his ass out of the way instead of dribbling forwards. If he wants to start dribbling forwards a bit too much in front, I might just need to put a little bit more pressure on that hindquarter so he understands that he needs to move that hindquarter out of the way, and sort of stepping forwards doesn't really get that pressure to leave. So I'm just going to ask for a couple more steps now. Good boy, be a little bit more specific in what I'm after from his movement. So I want him to move his inside hind, step his inside hind in front and underneath of his outside hind. Once he gives me that nice sort of step there, I'm just going to reward that. So we're just sort of building on this. Like I said, it doesn't have. I'm not here to try and get him to do it perfectly day one, but the sort of round penning drills you can do at the start, and looking to get control of his hindquarters doing that can be a bit of a building block for when you start putting a lead on him and wanting to understand to move his hip out of your way, when you first sort of lean down, use your body language and show your intent to move that hip. You know, the round penning sort of drill when towards the end there, when you're looking at his hip and ask him to yield his hip away and face you. The same motion you're doing to get him to do that from a bit more of a distance is the same sort of motion you want to be doing first of all here before you start using the stick as a bit of a stimulus tool to get them to move. So one drill sort of builds on the next, and you know, the day before should build on what you're looking to learn new or teach new to the horse the next day. That's sort of what I'm looking to possibly do as well. But these sort of starting to piece together pretty well. Now what I might do here is I'm wanting to learn to sort of yield his hip away from me a bit quicker. So I might put a bit more pressure on his hip and ask it to move faster than what it was before. So how I do that is actually just up the pressure quicker and just sort of put my intent and how quickly I up that pressure a bit quicker and a bit more energetic. So, you know, I want the horse to sort of read the energy of what I'm putting forward with how I'm asking, and read how quickly I want him to move as a result of the energy I'm putting into it. So I'm just bigger movements with the stick, more energy with my body. I'm always making sure I'm rubbing him with the stick as well, so he just doesn't think that every time I lift the stick up it's for him to move. I want him to understand that I can scratch him with it and it's just an extension of myself. I want him to yield, give me two eyes and face up to me. So the next drill I'm going to be doing is a lunging drill. I'm going to be looking to put pressure on his hindquarters, yield his hindquarters away from me, and have him turn and face me, and then I'll either continue on the same direction or change direction. So this is just the basis of that. And one of the things I'm looking to do is when I'm looking to back my horses up is if you can disengage their hindquarters and get them to understand that you can disengage their hindquarters, asking them to back up can also be easier as well. Because when they don't want to back up, they're jammed up behind. So you want to loosen up that back end to get your horses to start to back up nicely. You know, if you've got a horse that's quite sticky to back up, usually it's because their feet aren't moving behind. You can yield their hindquarters and then ask them to back up as their hindquarters are disengaging, and quite often you can get that first bit of a step and have the horse understand what you're asking by just getting that first backward step. You know, you sort of disengage those hindquarters and get the horse to then ask the horse to back up, and quite often you can just get that first step, that first building block, and then you can build on that. So sometimes if you can't get your horse to back up, look to yield those hindquarters, get control of those hindquarters, loosen them up, and then ask them to back up whilst they're loosened up and whilst they're moving. So whilst we sort of learn to do that pretty well, we're going to start doing some lunging drills. So, you know, this is all just, like I said, very early sort of teaching with him. So I'm not going to ask for everything to be perfect. And here when he's lunging, he's sort of a bit firm in my hands, but it's sort of to be expected. As he sort of pulls on my hands a little bit, I'm just going to tap on that head collar and ask him just to come off that pressure. If he wants to go the wrong way to what I'm asking with the lunge, I'll just give him a bit of a tap on that head collar and ask him to go back the other way. As soon as he does, I'm just going to walk a small circle, release all the pressure, just have him just go around me nicely. Like I said, just give him a bit of a tug on that head collar if he looks to try and lay on it a little bit, just sort of bump him off it. I'd like him just to have a nice bend with his nose tilted to the inside of the circle, towards the inside of the circle, and just have him trotting around here nicely. Like, you know, once he starts to understand it a bit better, I'll increase the pace, but you know, he started for the trot, he's just come out of his box, so he's probably got a fair bit of energy and his attention sort of elsewhere. So we're just going to look to see if I can put that pressure on that hip, yield that hip around, and change direction. So the signals are going to be giving him whilst he's on the lead here, lunge lead, is the same signals I gave him whilst I was free lunging him. So hopefully we can build some understanding from the free lunging, and the cues are going to be giving him to move his feet forward and yield his hindquarters. We're just going to try and blend them into the long line sort of drills we're doing here, so you can sort of start piecing together. So, you know, make the learning process a little bit easier on him, and hopefully we can speed up that learning process a little bit as well by having one drill and one learning exercise the day before link into the one we're doing today. And, you know, quite often we'll go over the exercises we did the day before and then build on those. So, you know, half the lesson might be reviewing the day before. The next half might be just learning some new things and linking the, what we learned into what we're going to learn. So I said all this I'm not looking forward to yield his hindquarters around perfectly and be real super snappy about it just yet. I just want him to actually pay some attention on me. When I step in and show my intent on his hip and put some energy on his hip, I want him to understand to move that hip away. Also just starting to learn what he's like on the lunge as far as how much pressure he puts on the head collar as he's going around. If he goes the wrong way, I'm just going to give him a bit of a bump in that head collar. Change that direction. So, you can lunge him around and go a bit quicker if you like and do whatever you want, but for me, I'm just he's not tearing around here. He's been pretty respectful. We're just sort of working on having him sort of be a bit more giving through his head here as well. So a bit just tapping on that head collar just to tip his nose in. Reinforcing the different cues we're going to be giving him on the ground to move his feet forwards. So, pointing up in the direction you want him to go and increasing that pressure of how you ask. If he wants to start rolling his shoulder out a little bit from the circle, I might put a bit more pressure on that hip. Ask him to bring that hip around. I'm going to tighten up his head collar. As we go on, I'm going to actually up the intensity of this groundwork drill. Have him sort of do a bit more work before I look to do some desensitizing and then saddle him. The saddling in itself is a desensitizing action. I want him to be used to being saddled and used to having the saddle on. So, the first saddling in itself is, like I said, is a desensitizing exercise. So I don't want him to sort of drag him out of his box and have him full of energy and then chuck the saddle on and let him go, because he's probably going to look to react to it. We want to have him have his attention on us, use the thinking side of his brain, so to speak, and see if we can get a horse that's going to make the day nice and easy for us. Good boy. Other way. Now, so I have to do this lunging drill a bit. I might go back to teach him to yield his hindquarters a bit more. We're going to do some backing. And then once he's sort of burned some energy off, we're going to do some desensitizing, and I'm going to get up close to him and start teaching him to yield to that head collar pressure, flex to the head collar. Probably then look to chuck the saddle on him, lunge him off. We'll do the same groundwork drills I'm teaching him here whilst he's got the saddle on. And the more control I can have on the ground when I give him his first saddle, the more ability I've got to sort of move him around. If he does look to all of a sudden have a reaction to it and sort of buck or whatever it might be, I can just have good control over him, his attention back on me, change directions, and not have it just him running around like a mad thing, reacting to the saddle, which I don't think he will, but there's still a bit more work here. Like I might even put a longer lead on him and have him lope out when I put the saddle on, just so I can get a bit more distance on him. This lead's kind of short. I think it's about 14 foot. But good boy.